Hello all, warm welcome to this information session. I think we're going to give participants about a minute or two to join before we begin. Thank you. Shubhami, are you able to tell me whether we have all our panelists? Because I'm sharing screen, I can't see.
Hi, Caroline. Not yet. We're still waiting for them to join. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. Yes. Yes, thank you very much, Caroline.
Okay, thank you. Jemima, Shubhami, should we get started?
Yes, sounds great.
All right. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. A warm welcome to this information session on IPA's Researcher Diversification Strategy Exploratory Grant Fund opportunity. My name is Caroline Uguto, and we are very excited to have you all in the room today. It's my pleasure to lead us through this session today, together with our other panelists, who I will introduce to you shortly. So for today's agenda, we will begin with the panelists' introductions and then take a couple of minutes to take you through the IPA Researcher Diversification, through IPA, sorry, and then through the Researcher Diversification Strategies Initiative, and then discuss in detail the exploratory grant fund opportunity, the grant type, the scope, and then give you some application tips and how to set up a good proposal, outline the next steps. And then lastly, we're hoping to get through this in about 20 minutes. Lastly, we'll get into the Q&A session. So please put your questions in the Q&A box or function, or raise your hand during that session, and we will be able to unmute you. You can ask questions. So this information session is for you, so please ask as many questions as you can. With that, let me introduce to you the team working on the initiative. So I'll ask each of them to kindly unmute. I'll start with myself. I'm Caroline Uguto. I'll moderate this session, and I lead IPA's Researcher Diversification strategy, and I work out of the Kenya office. Shubhami, please.
Thanks, Caroline. Hello, everyone. My name is Shubhami Obade. I'm a research and project development manager at IPA Nigeria, and I work from the Abuja office. Jemima?
Hello, hello everyone. My name is Jemima Okal. I'm Associate Policy Manager. I'm based in the Kenya office in Nairobi. Obed?
Is Obed on the call? Maybe we can proceed as we wait for him to join. So this just takes us through the agenda that I've just discussed with you. So I'll hand over the next session to Jemima. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, for the introduction. And once again, I want to welcome all the participants who've joined this information session. We want to appreciate your interest in participating or rather responding to the call to submit something to the exploratory grant. So I'll speak briefly about IPA, or Innovations for Poverty Action, if you like. So IPA is an international not-for-profit organization whose core mandate is to conduct research and policy engagement across various development sectors. IPA was founded in the year 2002, and we have a presence in about 51 countries, although we have actual offices in 22 countries. So our operations span across various sectors: agriculture, education, health, social protection, entrepreneurship development, among others. But we also have initiatives that IPA is running alongside these major sectors, such as the intimate partner violence. We have the human trafficking initiative, among other initiatives, as you will see from the IPA website. So as an institution, our mission is to discover and advance what works to improve the lives of people living in poverty. So in essence, our work, which is research and policy engagement, is focused on identifying solutions, innovative solutions through rigorous research that can address the global poverty problems that we experience. And our work is guided by 3 pillars, as you will see. One is to create stronger evidence. So here, IPA works with partners in the academic space to conduct rigorous research and to test innovative solutions. So we also support our partners to generate and use the data and evidence. So in creating the strong evidence, we are basically using the trying to understand the effects, or rather the impact of certain solutions and how the context in which those solutions can work. Secondly, the other pillar is sharing the evidence strategically. So we generate the evidence, but we are also aware that there's existing evidence, rigorous evidence that we can always rely on to make decisions. So in sharing the evidence strategically, we identify points in which we can come in to present relevant evidence to the policymakers and implementing partners so that this evidence can be used to influence conversations and inform the decisions at that particular point. And thirdly, we equip decision makers to use evidence. So in essence, we are saying that we work closely with the partners, the policymakers, to be able to understand and even learn from the data that they have, because IPA as an evidence producer is not the only one in the space. We understand that governments also produce their own data, they do their own research, but it is we work to build their capacity, or rather to strengthen their capacity to be able to learn from that data, but also interpret the evidence that they come across in their day-to-day work, and to interpret that into effective policies and programs. Next slide. Yeah, so IPA, as I mentioned, we have a presence in various countries, and we work across various sectors. So in this case, we have conducted research, rather we work with researchers, about over 600 researchers that we work with, both from the global north and south. Our work is spread across the continents, as you'll see, Africa, Asia, Latin America. And it's been over 20 years since we started engaging in research and policy engagement. We also work across the various programs that I had mentioned. Caroline, next slide. We also work across various program areas that I had mentioned. And the partners that we engage with across the space, the sectors include the policymakers. We work together with the implementing partners, and of course the development partners, because research on its own, we are interdependent, and therefore we work very closely with the partners. Next slide. So now I'll speak briefly about the researcher diversification strategy. So this is one of the initiatives at IPA that is meant to support the pipeline development of Southern researchers to be able to participate in producing evidence, but also engaging policymakers in the space. And at the same time, IPA supporting the engagement of Southern researchers by working together through the barriers that the Southern researchers face in the research space. So just going by statistics, one thing that we've noticed is that there's very low participation of Southern researchers in most of the development research that is produced out there. And this is as a result of the many challenges that the researchers face, among them being inadequate access to funding. There could be limited mentorship and network opportunities. There could be limited capacities in developing, or rather research development, among other areas. So at IPA, the researcher diversification strategy seeks to counter some of these barriers by supporting researchers with identifying or rather expanding development research networks, such that the Southern researchers are able to relate with researchers from other contexts, both North and South, and also to enhance access to funding for Southern researchers. So here we are also supporting a bit of advocacy with the research fund managers so that we are able to have more research opportunities targeted at Southern researchers. We are also supporting the pipeline development of researchers, and here we are also targeting the early career researchers within universities or in the sectors that we are operating in, and just identifying ways that they can learn by doing through IPA and other similar networks that are interested in developing researchers in the South. And lastly, we also support the researchers by identifying policy engagement opportunities. So we are really advancing the development of policy-oriented research so that the research that we produce can be utilized by the policymakers. So hence that policy engagement becomes a very critical aspect on getting the evidence that we produce being used to influence policy. So as a value add at IPA, our proposition and what we add, what we contribute to this. So IPA is leveraging its networks with researchers and also as an implementer of the research projects that we carry out. We also provide hands-on policy engagement, that is matchmaking with the relevant policymakers in order to co-create the evidence together with the researchers. We also have a network of researchers. I mentioned we are working with over 600 academics across the globe. So leveraging this network to be able to support early career researchers into participating actively in research development. And another value add that we bring is the convening power. So we operate in a space where we constantly interact with the development partners. And this is one of the strengths that we bring with us in that we're able to facilitate that match between the development partners, the academics, and the policymakers. So that is it, but there's more information on this that you can get from the website. So for now, I'll hand it over to Obed to take us through the exploratory grant opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jemima. Thank you so much. And sorry, everyone, I was not speaking at the beginning, but my name is Obed Kambasu. I'm a policy manager with IPA Uganda. So I will be speaking about the exploratory grant, which is actually why we are here. And now we will start with the grant types and the purpose. First of all, we have advertised this and said it has to be up to $10,000. And we are talking about an exploratory grant. So I would like to go a little bit about what does that mean from our perspective. So when we talk about exploratory work, we are talking about preliminary research ideas. So preparatory ideas, for example, conducting background research, developing partnerships, visiting field sites, or collecting early data to lead to probably what would be a bigger research. So in terms of talking about bigger research, IPA works with a methodology that we call randomized controlled trials, which are really impact evaluations. So we hope that this research, this grant, can be a building block for probably a bigger research in the RCT methodology. So if you think about this, it might be that you might use this kind of grant to negotiate maybe agreements or even to conduct preliminary data analysis or to actually set up some ideas of how your RCT would look like. So the costs might be, for example, costs for travel. So maybe one researcher wants to visit some kind of partners that they would be able to implement the RCT with. Maybe another researcher wants to conduct some sort of desk reviews or even some earlier qualitative research that can inform bigger research. So exploratory here is about exploring, trying to build, to put the foundation in place for probably a bigger impact evaluation or some sort of randomized controlled trials. So the whole idea really is that we don't expect a full RCT. Let's go to the next slide, Caroline. It will be a little bit more clear as we go along. When we speak about who is eligible, and this might only be for one of the team members. We are looking at researchers who have a PhD or a doctoral degree. And we are looking at researchers who have affiliation with a university, with a research institution, or with a think tank. And we are looking for researchers who are based in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and Uganda. So this call is specifically for these 4 countries. IPA has had another call for French West Africa, for example. And as we go along, we might have other calls for other countries. But for now, this is focusing on Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and Uganda. Now, this can be, for example, one person on the team meeting this, and others might have to also be in the team. So not everyone on the team must have a PhD, must be with the university, but at least in each team, that is if you're applying as a team, there must be someone who meets these requirements. And if you are applying alone, then therefore you should be able to meet these requirements. Next slide. So what are we looking for? We are looking for exploratory work that is based on a strong research idea. When we say strong research idea, first of all, there must be alignment with the themes that we mentioned in the advert. That for Kenya, we are focusing on agriculture. That for Ghana, we are focusing on A, B, C, D. So it must be clear for the country you're applying for, you must align your proposal with those thematic areas. But then it should be that your research has a clear pathway to a randomized evaluation. When we say pathway, we say that your exploratory work can lead to an RCT. We are again thinking about this as a building block, this as exploration of bigger work. So it should be clear that if I do this work, it might lead to an evaluation in these ways. And obviously, we want applications that are following the application guidelines. So we have very specific guidelines, and we would really want that. We are written, that are simple, that are succinct. When we talk about clearly written or even simple, we really mean it should be easy for someone to understand what you are talking about. You as the researcher, when you are putting your proposal, it should really be coherent. It should be consistent. You should, for example, I give you an example. Someone might say, I am going to do a qualitative exploration. And then they say, I will analyze it using regression analysis. Then you are like, what will you be measuring with regression analysis? And yet you are using only qualitative data. So it is important that you are clear, that you are simple, that you are consistent.
Is Albert still on the call?
I think we lost him. I can't hear him.
I'm really sorry. I think my network went off. But okay, so what makes your research a strong idea? It should be academically interesting, very interesting. It should be something that can really be studied. It should be policy relevant, and it should be an idea that can lead to an RCT. That is to say, it should have a question that has some sort of cause and effect. It should be something that you can build on to then conduct an evaluation. This is what would make it a strong research idea. Next slide. So I will be speaking lastly on this, and then I will hand over to my colleague. We talked about what is a clear pathway to a randomized evaluation, because this is what we have already said, that this exploratory phase is meant to to provide a clear pathway to an RCT. So when we say that, we mean, first of all, let me talk about exploratory phase. You need to be really laying the ground for an RCT. It could be that you are gathering initial data. It could be that you are conducting some kind of preliminary or even some sort of pilots studies. Not a proper, like saying this is now a big pilot and this, no, but you are trying to see the potential of, can this lead into an RCT? Can this lead into a bigger pilot? You are trying to test some methodologies. You are trying to build partnerships. You are trying to explore who you can work with. You are trying to build teams and try to build maybe some literature to build on. This is exploratory. It has to be interesting in a way that it is meant to build on something that can be bigger. And this is not a full RCT. It is for exploring the feasibility of doing either an RCT or a pilot. Very important, you have to have a team that can deliver this. So I will then hand over to my colleague for some of the tips that might be useful as you develop this. We will be able to respond to the questions as we go along. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Obed. And I'll try and keep this short so that we can have sufficient time to answer the many questions that are coming through from our audience. But the first slide I want to go through in terms of tips is just giving guidance on how you should think about your proposal. What we think is very important is following the application guidelines. It's really important that you follow the guidelines and the instructions that were outlined in the form so that we can easily understand your idea. But the second thing I want to mention is having a really concise statement of topic. That's really important for us to get through and understand your idea as much as possible. Just thinking through exploratory grants, it really is intended for preliminary research. So it's for your proposals need to only address the general topic of interest, the academic literature you hope to contribute to, but also how your idea might be explored through a randomized evaluation in the future. So things like that Obed mentioned earlier on. Another thing to highlight in your proposal is the proposed partners. So if you've had any discussions with partners, if you have a formal agreement, please include that in your application. The more details you share about how you've thought through your potential partners and who might be involved in your work, even if it's just a conversation or two that you've had so far, it gives us a sense of the engagement that you've had thus far. The third thing to think about is how you're linking your proposed idea to the country office's key themes. In the core document that was released, we clearly outlined the priority themes or areas for each country office. So Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda have different themes that they want to focus on for this funding round. It's really important that that's really, really and explicitly clear in your proposal. So it's very clear to anyone who's looking at it that it's in line with the key themes that the country office have mentioned. The fourth thing is your budget. You want to make sure that your budget is as detailed as possible so that we can review and provide feedback when necessary, but it also outlines all of the mandatory expenses. There's nothing that is key that is left out, and so that you can actually complete the work properly. And finally, it's great to also have information about the PIs. We want to have as much details as possible about the work that you're doing and what your expertise is in the field that you're trying to explore. Next slide, please. Great. When you're writing your proposal, it's very important that you have a clear title. When you think about it, after your basic information, the first thing that we see is your title. So it's really important that it's super clear, describes your work in a great way, and that we're able to understand from your title to a degree what you're trying to explore. but also using clear and concise language in your writing, and citing the relevant literature. It's very important that we know what literature you're using to think about your work and what literature you're trying to contribute to as well. The last and also very important point that I want to stress out during this session is reviewing your proposal. Go through it over and over and over again, but also get advice from those who you respect in your field or those who you work with, so your mentors, your colleagues, on how to think through your idea, and make sure that you're expressing it as clearly and as simply as possible. The page limit is about 2 pages, so you don't have a lot of time to quote unquote waffle or write many lines. You have to be really strategic about how you're expressing your idea so that the reviewer gets your point immediately. Next slide, please. Some of the common mistakes that we have seen over time is that people don't put enough detail on the theory of change and intervention. And despite the fact that there is a limit on the pages, we really want to make sure that you're outlining your program's theory of change. What we want to see is, what is the need you're trying to address? How will the inputs and activities you will provide address those needs? And what outcomes do you expect to see as a result? So those things have to be clear within the limits that we have provided. But also we want to see more about your evaluation approach and intervention, if that's relevant for your work, and providing details about your sample size and what the treatment involves, as well as how you plan to collect the data. Another common mistake is that we see that there's no clear pathway to an RCT. So one of the end goals of this funding round, or this call in particular, is how can we scale this up or move this forward to being a full-scale RCT in the long term? And we need to be able to see some level of pathway, some connections with the exploratory work. That's the entire purpose of actually giving you the funding, is for you to be able to develop your idea so you can see the potential for it to be an RCT in the future. And so that's really important for you to highlight in your application. Next slide, please. Lastly, I'll go through the RFP timeline. So the new deadline for the RFP or the proposals is 2 weeks from now, about 2 weeks from now, on the 19th of April. And then after that, we'll spend about 6 weeks reviewing, 4 to 6 weeks reviewing the proposals, and we will provide the outcome by May 31st. So we expect within a 6-week period that we'd have reviewed all the submitted proposals, decided on which ones will be funded, and have shared that information with the relevant researchers. Great. Thank you everyone for your time. I'll hand over to Caroline.
Thank you very much, Jemima, Obed, and Shubomi. So I think we'll now open it up for Q&A. We've been answering a few questions that have been posted in the Q&A box, but we're also happy to take questions that anybody has. Please feel free to raise your hand. Obed, Jemima, Shubomi, please also look out for me because I can't seem to see people raising their hands. And please stay online for answering the questions.
Great, Caroline, would you help if I... Oh, sorry, please go ahead, Obed.
Okay, thank you, Shubomi. So, Helen Lawino. Yes, we can hear you.
My hand earlier to the presentation. Thank you. But I'm from University of the Sacred Heart in Bulu, Uganda. Thank you.
I'm not sure if it is just me, but Helen, you are not audible.
Helen doesn't seem to be audible. Should we go to another individual?
Yeah, so we can go to Shakiru Adewale Kazim.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we can.
please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity to apply for this exploratory grant. I want to take you to the thank you for the clarification on the, because I was feeling that when you said this information session will take place 4th March and then to close by 5th March, 5th April, I was surprised. So, but thank you for the information that it's now 19th April. Now, what I want to look at is I want to look at the form that we need to fill. Under the narrative, you said the narrative should not exceed 2 pages, including the abstract appendices. So I was now looking at it that in under each of the guidelines, each of the points, for example, the statement of topic, you talked about where we need to, you gave us some guidelines. Can we remove those guidelines so that we can fit in, it can take up the number of page that we want to put, or we should leave the guideline? For example, now you say statement of topic, you said look at the guideline, you said exploratory grant are intended to support this primary research and so on and so forth. Can we remove that and include it in so that we have enough space to put on our write-up? Then the second point I want to look at is under the budget. Under the budget, you mentioned the RODS. You said RODS under budget. I don't know what RODS means. I've been looking at it. And if I would please, if you can go through the budget for us so that we understand what each item you want us to include under each item under the budget, I will appreciate that. So that's my second point. Then my third question is on the basic information about the PI. I've looked at the form. I can't find the section where we need to put basic information about the PI. Thank you. Those are my 3 questions. Hope you got me.
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we can pick a few more questions as the team prepares to answer. We'll also be answering the questions in the chat by text. Could we have Evans?
Yes, can we hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, good day from here. My name is Evans Osabo here. I'm in also a areas. For example, if we have a team member
I think we...
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Evans, you are breaking. But be quick, sir. Maybe just one question each person.
In terms of also the expertise. That is the conclusion. I'm not sure. Hello?
No, we cannot hear you well, Evans. And maybe we could move on to another person as you sort your voice a little bit there. Nasi Kadenyi. Hello.
Hello, yes, thanks, Obed. I'm just going to go through the list that is on, that I can see at the moment. Can Sebastian also please go next? I can't see the person you called. Apologies. So if Sebastian, if you can kindly unmute yourself and then would answer the question that you have.
Okay, can you hear me, please?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you so much.
Great. Yeah, so my area is quite tricky. So I'm a research scientist and I'm working on diagnostics, but the budget does not seem to be so clear to me. Someone mentioned it, but I was wondering if I could just add a word to it, so that someone can take us through, like where to put our reagents and all that in the budget. It looks a bit different from the proposals I'm used to. So please, if we can go through the budget again. Besides, I've already submitted my documents, so if anything at all, I'm not sure if I can make changes. I saw the call to have a deadline of the 5th, the call to have a deadline of the 5th of April initially, but I recently saw that it's actually 19th. Did I see right? And if that is the case, can I go back, retract my application, and then maybe put the budget together once it's explained?
Thank you, Sebastian. And if the other panelists don't mind, I can answer this quickly so that if anybody else has a similar question, they can lower their hands and can focus on unique ones as well. But those are great questions to ask. If you did submit it before, if you submitted it recently, you can resubmit your application after this session. So we wanted to make sure that those who have made prior submissions have more information through this session, and they can make changes to their proposal. In terms of the budget, just because of the time limitations, we'll discuss how best we can share information about the budget and guidance. And I think what we'll try and do is share a document on the same web page so that you can have more information about how to put together your budgets. And also trying to address your question about the reagents and how to put in your allowable expenses. I hope that helps, Sebastian.
Yes, that helps. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Wanted to add to that I think it's important that all participants or all people who intend to apply, just please look at the thematic areas for each of the country offices that are on the website, the thematic areas that each country office, sorry, I think I'll just read them out. So for Ghana, the focus area is education, health, social protection, and agriculture. In Nigeria, the priority themes are social protection, climate, agriculture, education, and health. In Uganda, the emphasis or what they're looking for is projects in mental health, education, climate change, and early childhood development. And then for Kenya, they want to focus on agriculture with an emphasis on food security and social protection. So I think it's important that we keep that in mind as we put our applications together. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. I'm wondering if Helen's audio is better now, so you can hear her question. Okay, if not, we'll move on to Esosa. So I'm going to allow Esosa to speak. Thank you. Esosa, please ask your question.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I joined in a bit late. I want to find out. I've downloaded the template, Researchers Diversification Initiative template, and you said the proposal shouldn't be more than 2 pages. I'm trying to is it are we supposed to use this template for the proposal, or maybe I didn't get something clear because I came late. So I was supposed to use it because the template is already like 4 pages from what I'm saying. So that's what I want to find out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll note that down and address any questions with regards to the templates as soon as possible. I'll move on to Lawrence Asige. Apologies for butchering your name. Hello, Lawrence, please ask your question. It seems like Lawrence is having some technical difficulties, and just for the sake of time, if you are having technical difficulties, kindly put your question in the Q&A chat. I'll do our best to get to it as soon as possible. Oh, but Lawrence, are you there now? Okay, so I'll move on to Iyeyinka Kusi-Mensah, please. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I have 3 questions. My first question is, can you apply to do exploratory research in multiple countries? So if you have a theme that cuts across multiple countries and you want to do exploratory research in multiple countries, is that allowed? Then I also wanted to ask for clarity on the proposed partners. Are those going to be individuals or organizations? And finally, to help with filling out the form, when are the grant start dates and end dates? Hello, please, did you get me?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't hear the last question. The start and end dates for implementation?
The grant. Yes, for the implementation.
So we will communicate this with the people who we end up choosing on this, but it should be implemented in a 6-month period, and we will communicate to them probably towards the end of May.
Then I was asking about the proposed partners, whether they should be individuals or organizations.
Proposed partners?
Yes, on the form, we're supposed to list proposed partners. I wanted to clarify whether they should be individuals or organizations.
I think organizations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Iyeyinka, and thank you very much, Caroline, for your response. I'll allow Kadu Ahim to ask his question. Thank you so much. Kadu, if you can please ask your question. Okay, for the sake of time, I'll move on to Ikechukwu Asogwa. Apologies for butchering your surname. If you can kindly ask your question, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Actually, the last question tried a bit to catch what I wanted to ask, and about the appropriation, how will I put it now? Given some of the highlights you guys did, can systematic review actually be appropriate in that side? Because at some point, systematic review might be very much be an eye-opener, but most of the times when there is some limitation in terms of the literature, it shrinks that study. So I don't know whether the efficiency of the application of systematic review in this, and the issue about can it cut across countries beyond a country of residence or focus. So it's also of concern to me. And lastly, I hope to get more information when the issue about the budget items will be treated. So these are the questions and my concerns that I wanted it to be addressed. Thank you.
I'll respond to that. Thank you, Ikechukwu. So a systematic review can be acceptable if it has a clear pathway to an RCT. So if you are doing this review so that it can then inform a pilot evaluation or an RCT, that should be fine. And can you do the research across countries? Technically, yes, but we would really want researchers to respond to the specific themes in each country. As Caroline was saying, you can see that in each country we have focused thematic areas. So it would be good if you are focusing on one thematic area. Plus, this is only up to a maximum of $10,000, which can actually be written also in Naira or in shilling or whichever currency you're using or in SEDI, but it must be an equivalent of $10,000. And so there is not so much you can do across many countries with this, but it has to be practical. If it is possible to do across countries, but focusing on a certain theme, that is fine. It would be really good if you focus on a thematic area in a country. And any reviews should be able to lead to an RCT, at least to suggest that this is how then it would lead into an RCT. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Obed, for your response, as well as Ikechukwu for that question. We'll move on to Seta Muziga Kevi. Again, sincere apologies if I got your name wrong. But please kindly ask your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nzaga Sati. The last participant almost asked my question. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Thank you. Please.
Okay. So now, now my question is, should the researcher, or if, okay, for instance, you are writing a proposal with a budget that exceeds what is stated in the proposal grant, $10,000, would that be accommodated?
Apologies, I didn't hear your question. Please can you repeat the question?
Okay, the grant, the amount of the grant stated in the proposal is $10,000. So should I come up with a proposal with a budget that exceeds that $10,000? Will it be considered?
Thank you so much for that question. Unfortunately, it will not be considered. The limit for each country office award is $10,000.
Okay,
that's the maximum, sir.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great. Moving on to Kirunda, I'll allow you to speak, please. Thank you. Or Smarts, it seems like yes, Smarts, please, if you can go ahead with your question. And we do have to round up the Q&A question, the portion very quick, very soon, but we'll try and answer one or two more questions and then give general feedback based on the previous questions. So Smart, if you can briefly go over your question, that would be appreciated.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon. Please, I want to just confirm that if applying, can someone doing a PhD, can the person apply? And secondly, I want to also know that can only one person apply for the grant without involving any other person? Will it be granted, please?
I can quickly respond to the, sorry, thank you, Obed. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Smart. Yes, you can apply when you are a PhD candidate and one person can apply, but also you can apply as a team. And in the Q&A, we see a lot in the text, how big should the team be? It should be as practical as possible. So you should choose depending on what your circumstances is. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Great, thank you. And just to take the last question, Joseph Ekwangu. Joseph, you can kindly ask your question, and then we'll move on to general responses. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is Joseph. I wanted to get some clarifications on co-funding. I wanted to know whether it is co-funding in terms of cash or in kind. Then also in the application template, there is what is actually towards the end, there is end date and the project start date and end date. What do we feel there as we're applying right now? Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. So I'll hand over to Caroline to provide some responses to the general questions that we have. Caroline, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chubomi. Sorry, what was this question about start and end date?
Yes, but I was also wondering, just because we have only 3 minutes left, if it's beneficial to answer any general questions that we saw in the chat and that were asked along the lines about the narrative and budget, for instance. Thank you so much, Caroline.
All right, thanks. Maybe just to quickly respond, it would depend on what you're planning in terms of your project and how you plan to implement it. So maybe that would be the start and end date. The project should be for about 6 months. But like I said, we would communicate to those who would be granted and work with them based on the timeline on when we were able to either get a sub-award up and running. So I think what we're going to do is that we're going to create an FAQ sheet with outstanding questions, questions about the work plan, questions about format, questions about the budget, word count, etc. And we're going to put it up on our website so that people can refer to it as they continue to put together their applications. I think we've tried to answer as many questions as we can, and I'm hoping that the FAQ sheet should cover the rest that we've been unable to answer in this session. I know there are very many more outstanding questions, so we'll try and gather them and ensure that we answer them in the FAQ sheet that we will put up on the same web page where the proposal has been, the call has been posted. So I want to thank you all for joining this session. I hope we answered as many questions as we could. Please feel free to reach out to us. There's an email that's in that call, and I'll continue answering any questions that come through that email. So thank you all for your time. We're a little bit past, about 15 minutes past the session, but we want to thank you for taking the time to hear us out, and we look forward to receiving many applications. Thank you for your time.